Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Modern Mystics podcast. In this particular episode, we're going to continue our exploration of the four elements: fire, earth, air, and water, and figuring out or discovering how each offers a different doorway to your intuition. And before we talk about all of that, I just really want to say thank you all for listening and being part of the podcast and following us on TikTok and Instagram and all of that, and just commenting on our posts and sharing your own ideas and emailing us ideas. We're just really thankful for all of your participation.
Truly, thank you.
Absolutely. So what comes to mind for you, Lola, when you're thinking about the element of earth?
With earth, the first word always that comes to my mind is stability, which is funny because the earth is not like this solid. It's constantly in movement, just like the rest of things. But I think of stability, of solidness, of groundedness. And I also think of like fertility, of things abundantly growing.
Oh.
That's what comes to mind for me. How about you?
I love that. I guess I think a little more in terms of topography. So I think like mountains and shores and trees and forests and gardens and things like that. And so I think, but I agree with you that there's a lot of like foundational and very stable element of earth. Even though I grew up in earthquake-ridden California, it's still, even though it shook every so often, it was still pretty, it was definitely more stable overall. So I totally agree.
Yeah, I think that with earth, we forget that just like the other elements, it does move. There is movement to earth, but it's slower. It's a different kind of movement. Have you ever read the book, The Hidden Life of Trees? Pretty sure it's older. It's 20 teens, 20, like 15, 16, somewhere in there. And in it, the author talks about, I don't remember his name, sorry. He talks about the electrical impulses. So if a caterpillar bites a leaf on the trees can discern the saliva of the insect biting them. And then they'll send out scents to bring in, either to like make it stink or be toxic for them, so they'll leave, or bring in their predator, to draw in the predator of the caterpillar or whatever's eating them. But they also at the same time send out an electrical impulse, but it moves like, I think it's an inch every 3 minutes. It moves very, very slowly. And so that's the speed of earth, right? Like it's just, It does move. The plates, the tectonics are shifting, right? There is movement, but the pace is very, very different. And so we think of it as a stillness. We think of it as solid, but it's good to remember that behind the scenes or underground, there is movement attached to earth. It's not that nothing is static in this life, not even earth. Everything is in movement.
I love that. It makes me think of the tortoise and the hare. Slow and steady kind of wins the race, that kind of thing. But I also feel like earth energy is so good too. It's tangible, right? Like we can see the fruits of it, or we can, touch it ourselves. And so while, in our last episode, we talked about fire, which is, that spark of creativity, the earth energy will be like, okay, what are we going to do with it though? What do we want to build? And so I think they go very well together in that particular instance.
Yeah, we have the inspiration, we got the idea, now what? And earth helps us turn it into something tangible or real. I love those words for earth. Intuition, specifically, that it is more tangible, it is more real. I really like that.
I agree. And I think when it comes to intuition, it's a little bit more tangible because it comes through our bodies. So, and not that fire doesn't also come through our bodies, but a lot of, earth energy speaks to the physical world. We're part of the physical world. And so it gives you kind of different senses throughout your body so that you can, I don't know, feel a pull or, feeling like a lot of people say words when they're talking about intuition about being drawn to something or, feeling like I need to go over there and talk to that person, things like that. So I do think that sometimes earth energy can be a bit of a gut reaction, like your initial reaction and and it and it's usually right. But then usually our programming kicks in and we start going, "Oh, but I can't. I haven't given it enough a chance." But anyway, for me, especially as a kid, a lot of earth energy was um tension, like tension in my body or just kind of like holding things because energy because I didn't really know quite what to do with it. Um, but some people feel like warm inside. Some people feel like there's like a little I don't know, not like the raising of the hairs on the back of your neck, but like a little tingle or something or goosebumps.
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes it's just like a sure knowing, if that makes sense. Like just deep in your body, you're like, I just know that's not for me, or I just know that doesn't feel right, or that kind of thing. I do also think that earth energy can feel light and it can feel like, again, drawn to, like I do feel like that's for me. So it's not always like the heaviness. There's also lightness and feeling a pull to something or that kind of thing. But I think it's one of those things you have to slow down and really notice. It isn't always something, especially because we're doing, 13 things at the same time most of the time. And so when sensations come through, it's super easy for us to sort of discard them um, or to explain them away or just forget about them because we're just human people and we're doing the best we can. But it's interesting because I think everyone's somehow has experienced it, but may not call it that.
That's what I was just gonna say. I think as far as we're talking elements and intuition, right? As far as earth intuition goes, I think it's one of the most overlooked types of intuition. People talk about, oh, I had a vision or a dream, or I saw something, or I heard a
Sure.
voice. Those are really common ways that we hear psychics talking about. And I think earth intuition, which is in the body, is often dismissed as, "Oh, well, that was, I just have a sense about things." And it's not given the same credit or credence that other forms of intuition are. So this is one of my favorite forms of intuition to talk about because I think a lot of people actually have earth intuition. And they're generally logical, sensible people, and so they're more prone to dismiss it than say a fire person that gets easily excitable. And so I right? They're like, "Yes, of
Yeah,
course I'm psychic." Where an earth
absolutely.
person's like, "Am I?" Right? There's a
Oh, yeah.
slowness to it. And so it can we have all of the physical senses are a form of earth intuition and the what's the word, sentience, being aware of what's going on with you. It took me a long time, and it sounds like you too, that holding that you were saying you would hold
Yes.
things physically, right? I think it takes a long time because people aren't teaching their children, hey, that feeling that you feel in your body and your stomach's a little upset and then you walk away from someone and it goes away, that wasn't your feeling. You were picking
Right.
up psychically the person near you. But our parents, unless they were also very psychic, weren't educating us. And so a
Right.
lot of earth psychic kids walk around without assistance because, Mom, my stomach feels upset.
Ah,
No, are you ill? We don't,
yes.
parents don't think, oh no, you're psychic. We think they're right.
So
Or
true.
I'm so excited and so happy, but I don't know why. Is earth energy, and you can be borrowing that. And earth people, think, tend to pick up on a broader scale often
Hmm.
with lack of awareness because there's something, because it's a slower processing, slower moving. There's also a breadth to that information coming in.
Mhm.
And so maybe nobody in your vicinity is sad, but maybe someone 3 apartments over is,
Yep.
and that's where it's coming from. So if you're a person that feels a lot of sensations in your body that you don't know where they're coming from, chances are your intuitive type is earth because it's overlooked a lot.
That's so fair. I feel like in our last episode, we talked about fire and how fire is attached to sight a lot of the time, or clairvoyance. Well, because, like you were saying, my parents didn't have a way of teaching me about intuition, I learned a lot about it from watching TV. But all of the TV people saw things, and I didn't. And so I just figured, well, I just don't have intuition then, like it's some sort of club I didn't qualify for, that kind of thing. And
Right.
so it's really fascinating because it's like, if intuition equals seeing and I don't have seeing, then I must not have like it's just it was a very straight line for me. But I had that kind of knowing a lot of the time for no reason. I didn't know why I knew something. I just knew I felt like conviction for it even. It wasn't just,
Mm,
I feel pretty certain. It was, no, no, this is not the right way to go, or this is the right way to go. And I couldn't explain it. And people would be like, well, why? And I would be like, I don't know, I just know. So yeah, there's a lot of that and a lot of feeling, yeah, either other people's emotions or tension between people sometimes. Like maybe they weren't crying or looking sad or whatever, but I could still feel that something else was going on, even though I had no idea, which I also did not think was intuition. So I had all of these, you know, like very telling signs if you know what you're looking for, I guess. And I just didn't have a way to understand that they were much more like earth and sensory based. And it didn't have to be I either saw things or I didn't.
right. And I think specifically with like on TV and media, those things, and they often attach like vision, right? That
Yes.
clairsense, they attach that to psychic, and they don't attach, olfactory or these other ways of the body showing us
Yes.
things to psychic, even though they are, right?
Yes.
We will like, I don't often get scent, but there are a few times in my life that like pot just started showing up before we left our last house. I started smelling pot all the time. I checked
Huh.
all the neighbors. I checked, and I
Yeah.
was like, what is this? And I finally figured it out. And it was a psychic sense coming through, but it's not common for me. So it took me a minute to, again, the earth is
Sure.
subtle, right? It's that slow, an inch for 3 minutes kind of movement. And because it's physical sense based, we often ignore it. When psychics are talking about seeing things, they're not talking about with these eyes 90% of the time. They're talking about psychic eyes, their third eye or inner vision, right? And so to see something with your physical eyes, that's earth. To smell something with your nose, that's earth. And you can have inner smell, just like you can have inner vision,
Hmm.
but earth heavy people actually smell through their nose. They see
Yeah.
through their eyes. And so they discount it because it's so physical. And it
Yes.
takes awareness and practice to again discern between your knowingness, ooh, there's tension here, versus I don't like these people and I want to leave because they bug
Yes.
me. Right? Like, is that psychic? Maybe. Or is that you just annoy me and I don't like being around you? So,
Yes.
learning to differentiate those is sometimes even harder when it's earth because we're so used to, well, at least I was, and I'm now projecting my upbringing onto literally every person in the world. So maybe don't do that, Lola. However, many of us in American culture were taught to discount the message our body was giving us. You are physically uncomfortable, too bad, sit there and be quiet. Don't stand up, don't move your body, be still. Smile more. Be not you as much as you can possibly be so that you're pleasing to others. Well, all that does is if you're an earth psychic, you have trained yourself to not hear it, to turn that off. And so if you were raised in American culture, pre now, basically, you were probably trained that way to some degree and have some undoing to be able to fully use those psychic gifts.
That's so true. And I think you're right. I feel like if you've been in someone's presence for a while, they're bugging you, that's different. But when you're like very first walk into a room and you just get kind of I should probably stay away from that person kind of feeling, I I think like it's that first reaction that's a little bit more on the earth energy side or the earth intuition side. And it doesn't always make sense because sincerely, every single time you feel something, you might go, well, why? And
Mhm.
being able to, and then when you say to yourself, why, you might come up with, well, I had a bad experience with someone with a baseball cap when I was 13, or like, you're gonna come up with a lot of things. But sometimes there isn't like anything huge. Sometimes maybe that person's in a bad mood. Maybe their energy just doesn't really mesh with yours. Like, there's so many different ways. And I think I have ignored that enough and then regretted that I ignored it enough to just kind of not question it anymore. But I think sometimes being able to suspend asking why, or just delay it for a little bit and just kind of, do or don't do whatever's kind of coming through, like play with it a bit and see how it goes. It's hard to stop asking why. It is so in our DNA to try to figure things out and that kind of thing. But I think a lot of the time we get better acquainted with earth intuition when we're not trying to figure it out immediately or explain it immediately.
Yeah, again, it's that slow subtleness. I really love that suggestion, especially for earth heavy people. That if someone can do it, they can do it. They can pause a beat.
Yes.
Sometimes for replacing, like asking why, because it's habitual, and any habit just goes unconscious, and then we're just doing it before we catch it, right?
Yes.
If we can replace it with something different, we have a higher success rate. One of
Hmm.
my favorite words to apply to anything intuitive that's coming is just to acknowledge it and say, that's interesting. I'm not judging it. I'm not evaluating it. I'm not
Love it.
questioning it. I just note it. And then I don't have to do anything mentally to try and suppress the need to ask why. I've done something with that information coming in, and then we let it ride and we see what comes of
Love
that
it.
information. So just try that. And if interesting isn't a good word for you, I'm air heavy, so interesting works for me, but maybe it's that's dumb. I don't know. Whatever the word is for you, just replace why with something
Yes.
that doesn't require you to answer a question. The brain will answer anything you ask. So we can also use that skill with earth energy to say, why am I so earth
True.
intuitive? What in me is picking up earth intuition? And then you'll start seeing those things. They'll start showing themselves to you. So question differently, maybe than questioning yourself, question how you're getting the data, question where it's coming from when you get the data. There's a lot of ways to use that why. My favorite thing about earth heavy people is they're simple. Keep it simple, stupid, right? Kiss, that saying, keep it simple, sweeties,
Yep.
nicer way of saying it. But that's earth. They're blunt. They'll say it like it is. And if it's not broken, why are you touching it? Leave it alone. Stop messing with things. Everything doesn't have to be the latest, greatest, or improved. Just stop.
I'm feeling
So
a little bit called out, but
I'm sorry.
but it's so amusing that I can't even be mad at it because I'm like, yep, I am not an early adopter of technology. I like other people to figure it out, and then I'll follow. I don't, anyway.
Yeah.
Yes, all of those things and more.
Yeah. So we're just going to keep it easy when we're talking about earth
Love that.
intuition. It can be as simple as, "Ooh, I got a stomach ache," and you put a note somewhere. This is what I ate. This is what I was doing, right? Give yourself a data tracker. That's something an earth person I think would get really behind generally.
I agree. And I like the idea of pausing because I feel like that's a huge part of earth intuition. Not pausing because of doubt, not pausing because you're afraid or anything like that, but just literally earth energy is a little more receptive than it is like, put like just get out there and do it. And sometimes the safest way to figure out like what's next is to pause or to put yourself in like an observer spot, like you were saying. That's interesting because it kind of gives you a tiny boundary between you and whatever it is, and you can kind of consider it for a second. The good thing about Earth is that it wants to make sure if we're going to act, it's because we have a good foundation, or we have like a solid plan or something along those lines. And it doesn't have to figure everything out from the beginning, but it definitely is going to hold you back from just jumping in sometimes. It'll be like, let's talk about this first. And it's much more of like a planner and an executor than like a just a spark of inspiration, like we were talking about with fire.
Well, and this is, I love the responsiveness, right? We call energy either yin or yang or masculine or
Mhm.
feminine, positive or negative. The negative, the yin, these are the receptive energies. The feminine, right? Those are equal signs as far as
Yes.
descriptors of energies, right? And negative, because of that word, people think it's something bad. So I really like the receptive description. It's feminine energy isn't bad or negative in those
Nope.
terms. It's just slower. Again, back to the tree with the caterpillar, one of my favorite things, and he doesn't talk about this, at least I don't remember him talking about this, could be lying, but the caterpillar takes a bite and it sends out the immediate scent signal. That's almost instantaneous to, okay, don't kill me. How much are you going to eat? Right? Like you can have some
Good call.
bites, but
Yeah.
not too many. But the electrical impulse is going down to the roots through now we know the mycelium network, right? And it's going to spread out to the other trees in the area because if there's one caterpillar, there's probably more. So get ready, right? Lunch is happening. We
Huh?
need to protect ourselves as a group. And I think that's very earth. The receptiveness of earth, there has to be something you're receiving from, right? So inherently, you're not alone. There's something
Hmm.
coming from somewhere to you for you to receive that. You're already part of something bigger than you. And
I love that.
there's the collective awareness. And so this pause isn't about doubting yourself, it's taking in this larger breadth of data. If I say yes to this invitation that I just received, but I've already said yes to 3 others, I'm going to now have to cancel on this person or this person, right? It's Earth is doing that with every data. Hey, I got the stomach ache, but I also feel like everything's going to be okay. What does that mean? Okay, well, maybe they're not the best person for me, but I will handle this. I will be okay. Right. And so because it's broader, it's not just about me, what that we can get with fire. It requires some nuance, some thinking, some strategy, and that's earth. While it's keeping it simple, it's not that they're slow, dumb, or any of those things. It's that they're nuanced. And that beat allows them to sort the nuance of a situation and take better steps, take better um, I think it's the response again. Receptiveness requires a response. And instead of reacting like we get with fire or maybe air, we respond, which we get with earth and water. So
Love
using your
that.
intuition as a response technique if you're heavy earth, because you're
Yes.
probably often having things come at you. And how do you want to respond?
I totally agree. I love the difference between react and respond, because it's kind of subtle, but it not really. It makes a big difference. But I also think that earth intuition requires a little bit more patience. A lot of times, uh, as humans, we want to know, like, well, what do we do, or where do we go, or how do we like what is it that we can actually do? And sometimes earth intuition will say, right now, you just need to sit and give it some time. Or sometimes it will say, you don't need to act right now. It's not decision time. It's like weighing things time, or it's bringing in some air and imagining what could happen, like that kind of thing. There's a lot of different, not just sitting and doing nothing, but being able to trust the timing and the ways those things come through is a lot more earth.
It is. I think of a farmer in the summer while they're busy prepping for winter of lack. It's actually one of their least busy times. Spring is planting, fall is harvesting, summer is more chill.
Yeah.
There's less to do in the summer other than prep for winter, which does take a lot of time. But it's this abundant mentality Earth has that there's more than enough time. There's more than enough abundance for me to go at my pace. That's earth intuition. It will not be rushed. And if you try and rush earth intuition, it usually doesn't go good. So I would
Yes.
warn against that. Um, we've talked about with fire, meditating, and with earth, we have other tools we can use.
So there's a few different things because earth energy is much more tangible. Sometimes it's easier to work with tangible items. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about divination tools, because divination tools really in and of themselves are very neutral. They usually represent something else. They sometimes are almost like validation sometimes for our intuition. And honestly, the physicality of them, of like having something to hold on to, a tangible way to sort of connect with that energy, is usually really comforting when you're trying to tap into earth energy. Um, so if you're looking at things like um, tarot cards or oracle cards, tea leaves, if you read those, magic balls, no, crystal balls, crystal balls, or things that you sort of throw. There are lots of, like people throw, or draw runes. Sometimes people throw bones and seashells, that kind of thing. There's a Celtic tradition called oim that's like staves of wood that have little draw or carvings in them, sorry. And so there's a lot of like tangible things that if you're not entirely sure if what came through your senses is really something you should pay attention to or something that's important, you can always draw a card, or you can always use them to kind of start the conversation with your intuition. And the easiest way, there's so many ways. We could talk for days about divination tools, so we're not going to talk about how to use them all, but I will say that there is kind of a methodology overall, which is you just make sure you're grounded and you're focused versus, scattered. You can set an intention. If you want to write it down, you can. And when your intention is set, just hone in on the kinds of questions you want to ask. Maybe there's only one, maybe there's only two or three. That's fine. But just getting pretty clear about your questions that you want to ask through the tools will be really good. Probably one question at a time is a good idea too. I have lots of clients that sit down in front of me and ask me 14 questions in a row and then say, okay, what you got? And I'm like, but wait, which one are we doing? Wait, what are we doing first? Yeah. Anyway, you use
Too
whatever.
much data.
Oh, yes. It's so, I'm like, do we go in order? How does this? Yeah, exactly. So after you hone in on your questions, you just use the tool to kind of either answer it or to give you insight into it, or maybe even a little bit more context. And then as Earth likes to track things, writing the answers down is really helpful, because maybe in one session you felt or you drew a particular rune for something, and then the next time you didn't, but like 3 times later you did. You can look at like the overall, like over time, the repeating imagery or the repeating messages, and you can ask yourself, like, what was I feeling, and what did that mean for me at the time, and kind of develop your own little encyclopedia of information as it comes through. And honestly, I don't know. I feel like sometimes using divination tools, I'm not saying that they can't be used year round, but I do think that sometimes if you're using them along with whatever the flow of the season is, meaning you're using them for like maybe some shadow work in the winter, or you're using them for abundance work in the summer, like following the amazing kinds of themes and energy that is going through the season can be really, really helpful. So yeah, paying attention to what the seasons have to teach us, or connecting with those seasons or nature, can really strengthen earth practices.
And it gives that grounded structure, right? That
Yes.
Earth tends to gravitate towards. One of the things that came to mind as you were sharing all of those tons of tools, right? Everything under the sun you can use with Earth, because anything physical, like a lot of people use witches bags, and they just pick objects that have meaning to them, that equals something or means something, and they will throw those too. So, but what struck me is relationships. I have noticed with tangible objects like tarot cards, I can get a new deck and shuffle it and read it, but it's not yet, we don't have a relationship yet. And earth energy is kind of relational like that. It's slower, right? I know a lot of people have really rigid rules about tarot, like you can't buy your own first deck. And I don't subscribe to all of those things. And we've talked about that in other episodes. But I do know that the longer I've used a deck, the more I get from that deck. It over time, relationally, we understand each other better. And whether it's just through a favorite mug being used to be your tea leaf read or whatever, we leave our imprint with objects and they imprint upon us. Even if we would say they're dead, there's still something about that interaction that gives us more on a psychic or intuitive level over time with Earth. Time is very much a part of the Earth archetypes. Capricorn is father time. That's the archetype we associate with Capricorn. So think about Earth, right? We keep talking about this slowness, this pause. These are time invocations. We're invoking time every time we're mentioning those things. So play with time. And, see those records you're keeping, see with time how things evolve. We're talking about the wheel of the year, using the seasons. All of this is time. So incorporating time into your practice and with, how it works within you. The first time you try and use tarot cards, maybe it doesn't go great. Remember, time is part of it. So keep going, keep trying. It's the element, it's the psychic gift of 1,000 hours means you'll become psychic. That's Earth. So don't quit too early on. If you're fire and you've tried it 7 times and haven't gotten anything, move on. That's not for you. If you're Earth, keep going. 7 was not enough times. So know that qualitative difference, because time is, you get whatever you give over time with Earth energy. You will receive that investment, and it's a 1-to-1 ratio. It doesn't, there's not skipping, there's not speeding up. It is time. It is measured and it is consistent. So
I agree.
the other Earth form that we can use psychic gifts through is objects, touching objects, getting data from objects. And again, like we mentioned with fire, there's always a blending because you're all of the elements. You're not just one element. So if you pick up an object and you feel a sensation in your body, that's earth energy. If you see something, that's fire. If you hear things, air maybe, or feel things, water. So using objects to hone your psychic abilities with earth is a really great thing to do. Like I was saying, with those divination tools, a favorite mug, that's a form of psychometry, right? We're imbuing our energy into that mug. And if I go away, someone could pick up that mug and learn a lot about me from earth energy. So do you use psychometry a lot, Jen, in your practice?
Not a ton. I have had, I can use it. And sometimes if I would like meaningful objects around me, sometimes they can be more of a inspiration than a tool. But yes, there have been a lot of times, especially when I am reading for pets who have expired or who have died. When I read for pets that have passed away, a lot of times people bring their collars or, something like that. And so I'm able to utilize that a lot to connect with the animal's energy, but um, have used them periodically, but not a ton. How about you?
Yeah, I don't use, I think it's because a lot of my client work is online and has been always. I have had clients bring things to me, but often if it's a loved one who's passed or a pet, they have imbued so much of them onto that collar that sometimes they come louder than the pet or they come louder than the deceased person for me. So I I think I pick it up sequentially, and maybe that's just earth energy, right? The last person to touch the collar is what I pick up first. And so I have to go through all the people before I get to the pet. And I don't know if that's normal or if that's just how that works for me. So I find it inefficient. And, because I'm so young energy, that's not my chosen way generally. I usually want something a little faster. But I have picked up, I think I'm more like you, where I use it more almost like talismans, where I choose
Yeah.
objects that have great meaning and significance to me, or will bring in, right? If I want to have wisdom and work with Athena, I use psychometry that way, that I will imbue an owl with her energy or something. And but I'm using it backwards, right? That's a practice, not an intuition coming in. I'm using it as an outward going intuition, but you can do that, right? That's a way to play with earth intuition, is to
Yeah.
see if you're able to charge an object. That's earth energy. That's you doing that. So it's a good
Love
way to
that.
play.
Um, are do you want to talk about muscle testing?
Well, I don't know. I am probably so I think it's when I meet something new, that's your rising sign. When you meet something new, whatever your rising sign is, kind of how you interact with it. Mine is fire. And muscle testing is more earthy. It's slower. It's using the body. And so I forget I have that tool a lot.
Mhm.
Someone will say, "Did you muscle test?" And I'll be like, "No, why didn't I muscle test?" And then I'll muscle test. But it's not my first go to because,
Right.
again, I have to ask yes and no questions, 1,000 of them, to get the right answer, where
Yes.
fire's just like, yeah, I already know. Let's just do this. And if I fall flat on my face, I'm fine with that. So it's not my number one tool. So there may be a better guide out there. You're welcome to find it. But generally, muscle testing can work two ways that I know of that most people use it, is either with your hands or with your full body. And you have to check how you're charged. People can be charged positive or negative. So the first thing you want to do is just ask your body to show you yes or no. And if you're doing your hands, if you're on YouTube, you can see this. You form like an okay, like everything's okay with your fingers, with the thumb and forefinger. And then you put the other hand through that loop, the same with another okay, but it's inside of it. And then you just say, show me yes. And so for me, yes is tight. And I'll say, show me no. And it will slide through. That's how it works for me. That's a normal charge. It might work the opposite for you. And you can, if it works opposite, if no is it pulls through, I mean, if no is it stays tight and yes is it pulls through, then you might want to check if you're hungry, if you're tired, if you're sleep deprived, because that's a way to check if your body's ready to receive information or not. Again, Earth has a certain way of doing things, and there's procedures and there's order. And so you might be ready for that information, you think, but your body is saying, not through me. Not through me, not till you give me food or let me sleep, not through me. So be aware that if you are heavy earth and that's the intuition type, taking care of your body is paramount for you to get accurate, reliable, when you need it, timely. There's that word again, information. And so you can test everything. Another tool that I use is called tapping or emotional freedom techniques. And you've probably seen it. People tap on their head and around their eyes, kind of look weird, all of this. But you can tap out allergies. And so with muscle testing, you can say, am I allergic to this bread? But you can break it down by ingredients. Am I allergic to the gluten in this bread? Or is it the salt? Or, did someone put eggs in here? And you can figure out what an allergy is through muscle testing. It can get very granular. That's the beauty of an earth tool, is they can get very granular. The other thing I like about muscle testing for earth intuitives is it's tangible. Again, like a tarot card or a pendulum, there's something physical that you're doing. And I love that it involves the body and uses you as your tool, just like a air person is using their mind as the tool, or a water person is using their heart as the tool. Earth people can use their body as the tool without any other. It's a free tool as long as you have hands. So that's my synopsis of muscle testing. We have a guide on it, I think, on Patreon, maybe. I'm not sure where it's at. We will put it somewhere and we'll note that we put it there. So keep an eye out for that.
Good idea. I love it. Yeah, muscle testing is when I was introduced to it was so fascinating for me because I learned the same way you did with finger, like your interlocking okay signs. But I also learned that sometimes you feel very like drawn towards something if it's meant for you or not for you. And um, in intuitive practices, muscle testing helps me kind of drill down on the answers I'm given. So if I feel clairsentience or yeah,
Mhm.
if I feel like I get an intuitive feeling and I'm not quite sure if I need to do that right now or later, then sometimes I will muscle test and say, "Is this something I need to do today? Is this something I need to do in an hour?" Like that kind of thing so that I can kind of figure that out. It helps me it's not predictive, so it doesn't necessarily tell you what's going to happen. It just tells you like what's true for you right now. And so the stronger the muscle, the more things are true, and the weaker the muscle, the less they are.
Unless
Off.
your polarities are switched for some reason, then it will right, then
Yes,
you will
as long as you're
reverse that.
calibrated. Yep.
Yeah, so if you're again, if your instrument, your body is out of whack, then that can reverse. And it's okay to use it reversed if it's urgent, but really you want to get calibrated correctly towards
Yep.
tight is yes and loose is no.
Yes. I was taught to first ask my body through muscle testing if it's willing to tell the truth and checking that. And then finding if I'm I what I call it is my circuits are in. Meaning
Mhm.
like everything's kind of running well. I ask, are my circuits in? Am I willing to tell the truth? And then I do like a test, like something that I know is wrong or right, and I test it to see what's strong and what isn't every single time I do it. So it just helps me um, double check before I go. But I find it so useful and very reassuring. and again, it's tangible. So I'm all about earth and tangibility, but that's okay. Yeah, I love it.
N I think it's a phenomenal tool. Like I said, I just have to remember to use it. When I remember to use it, I love it. Because it's very simple and it's very fast. And nobody even has to know you're doing it. I can do this in my lap and no one's even aware.
Right.
So if I'm sitting in a room and I'm about to sign like I just bought a house, is this the right offer? Should I accept this offer? I don't want to go meditate in the corner in front of my realtor for 45 minutes and be like, grab a crystal ball. Hold on, I got to pull 5 tarot cards. Could you please wait? They're going to think I'm batshit crazy. So instead, I can just muscle test, is this the right offer for me to say yes to? And nobody knows. And so it's a very integrative in real life practice that's very easy to assimilate into just going about life. If you can pause long enough, the other thing I love that you said about muscle testing is you're using it to manage time. That is one of the things that I actually use muscle testing for often because with fire, we're too early. Like always too early. You're getting the inkling this might be an idea sometime in the future, right? It's future
Right.
pacing. Earth is now. And so, okay, this is coming in. Is it now? Is it now? Is it now? No, Lola, it's never now, ever. The answer is always no. But having that reassurance of, yep, you're not wrong. It is coming through. That's correct.
Yes.
You did hear it, but not yet. Take a beat. And I think muscle testing automatically forces you to get into your body because you're like, oh, wait, what is yes? What is no? Am I telling the truth? Are my circuits on? Right? All of those things put you inside of your body and slow you down. So I think it's a really good tool, even just to, if you've been meditating, like people are afraid to meditate or astral project because they're afraid they'll get lost in the ether. So just muscle test when you're back. Am I back? Yes or no?
Nice.
So
I love that.
using it in conjunction with other tools, if you're not very heavy earth, it's a great one to use to bring you and slow you down and ground you, put you in your
Love
body.
that. And grounding is such an important part of earth energy in general. Fire is like, let's move, let's get things done. But the earth energy through your intuition is usually through slowing down or through taking a minute or pausing, like we talked about earlier. And I feel like there's just so many great ways to ground your energy, to feel more centered, that kind of thing. Do you have like a favorite practice of your own? Are you more of like a meditating grounder, like a, I don't know, dance around your living room grounder? I don't know. What works for you?
I struggled with grounding ever it wasn't safe to be in my body as a kid, and so I was kind of a half in, half out, like, I had a body who has a body. I didn't even know I had a body half the time. For me, it was crystals. Holding
Oh,
on to a rock. Literally, I would put them in my hands and be like, "'Kay, this is solid. Be here. Be with this crystal. Be with this rock." And so I would get, like, big I have some pretty big crystals that I would take up my whole hand to, like, bring me here, and I actually
wow.
used the crystals through therapy as a grounding mechanism of because I would do EMDR to heal all that trauma and to put me back here and now and in my body, I would just grab a rock. And, I'm a big proponent of they call it earthing now, they're all fancy. Just walk barefoot, like, just going
Yeah.
outside and standing with my feet on the ground,
Yes, me too.
uh, being present with the planet, like, "Oh, I'm here, and this is where I'm at." So just taking my shoes off, those are probably my 2 favorite ways to ground. How about you?
Um, I I hated shoes as a child. I think if I put shoes on, it was because it was, like, necessary or because the pavement was way too hot. Because I lived in Southern California, it got very hot in the summer. But, like, I yeah, barefoot is, like, the best, and anyway oh, I was gonna say something about your crystals, which is I love crystals because they come from the earth, so they're like a little piece of earth. So you're not just, like, I don't know, walking around with, like, a clod of dirt, you're like, "I've got this, this thing that has its own energy, and it's also earth energy," and so I really love that. I okay, so I have 2 different ways that are sort of like go-tos for me. One um, is taking deep breaths, which sounds like it wouldn't necessarily be super earthy, or like maybe air in your lungs is more like an air element. But the thing about taking, and I literally say 3 deep breaths. So taking 3 to 5 deep breaths, it slows things down in your body. So a lot of times if we're stressed or whatever, we breathe kind of shallowly anyway. So it's one of those things that makes us kind of like oxygenate the body, makes the body kind of be working differently, gets you more in touch. And when I take a deep breath, I also wiggle my toes. And that way I
Mm.
feel like wherever I'm breathing to, which, is my lungs, that like if I'm doing something like wiggling my toes, it can help bring it a little further down. There's something about like where your attention goes is where energy tends to flow. And so if I'm wiggling my toes while I'm taking a deep breath, it kind of grounds me even further. That's one of my favorites. And then
I
the other
love
one is
that.
called, it's so fun. And you can do it anywhere, right? Like you don't
Yes.
have to close your eyes. So you could do it at a stoplight if you need to. You could do it, you can do it in the middle of a meeting if people are driving you crazy. Like there's just so many things. Or if you're just too stressed, it's a good way to kind of slow down and just get back into your body. The other one that I really love is called the thumb trick, and, it's not really a trick. It's just about the energy pathways in your body. They can kind of meet in your thumbs, and so if you kind of make 2 thumbs up and you invert it so your thumb pads are on top of each other, um, and then you kind of bring your fingers in and squeeze. It is amazing how quickly I feel my energy just kind of sink a bit. Not in a bad way, but in like a, okay, I'm definitely back in my body. And so there's something about just having those energy pathways meet and get a little bit of attention. And you can do it, 2 times or 50 times. It's totally up to you. If you're in a lot of need for continuous grounding, you can do it a lot if you want. I could do it like under the table when I was in a corporate job and we were having meetings and I was like, I feel myself floating out of my body because there's so much tension in this room, that kind of thing. So I learned that really quickly. And it's so simple. And again, I don't think you should do it while you're driving. Maybe if you're stopped at a stoplight, but yeah, keep your hands at 10 and 2 or whatever. But for the most part, it's easy to do wherever you are.
I really like that one also. It reminds me of a technique that I've taught a lot of clients. So anxiety and excitement are the same energy, right? And these are very somatic, right? This is a somatic, right, pressure point. If I'm going here, these are somatic things to de-escalate the body and bring us back to stasis or a calm state. So that's why they're so effective and intense. And one of the things you can do if you've got anxiety, it's an overabundance of energy. There's too much adrenaline coursing through your body. And so you tighten all your muscles and you release. That's what this reminds me of. It's a pressure of forcing
Yes,
energy and pressing. It focuses, right? So where your attention goes, energy flows, and it does, the pressure brings you into the body, into the now. So it's a
exactly.
brilliant, those are both brilliant tools. Of course, my brilliant partner here is brilliant. So of course they're brilliant.
Oh, thank you. That's so
Yeah.
nice. Well, I
Yeah, that's
love
really
that.
good.
And we'll put a little grounding reflection on the website for you to try if you haven't done that before. There are lots of guided meditations for it. There's a lot of different ways to do it, and we would love to hear what you do to ground your energy. If you have like a cool trick like the thumb trick, or you're doing particular stretches, or I mean whatever it is that kind of helps you feel a little more grounded in your body, we're definitely up for it.
Yeah, as soon as you said that, I was like, "Oh, yes." Like singing, right? You were talking about the breath. I do think breathing is very earth because, right? It
Yeah.
drops you. I think there's an element of droppingness, like that's not a word. I'm making up words now. There is
That's
that
all right.
depth to earth, right? Maybe it's the roots of the
Yes,
trees or the I don't know, but it's a vroom instead of a different kind of energy. It kind of drops. So
I
I think
agree.
that's a qualitative thing you can watch for if you feel that dropping that settles you and that works for you, and then you can hear better or think better, then that's you'll probably have earth intuition and you can try some of these techniques we've talked about today.
I agree. I think one of the best things about earth intuition is that it doesn't really separate us from our bodies, right? Our intuition and our bodies are, intertwined. And I think that's so important. And so if you do any experimenting with muscle testing or grounding or divination tools or things like that to see what works for you, please drop us a line and let us know what's working for you, because again, it's not about getting it right. It's about finding what's meaningful to you or what resonates for you. And so over time, you just tend to build trust with it. But it's such a process. I mean, we would love to hear your journeys. And so feel free to DM us or send us an email or whatever and just share how earth energy is showing up for you.
And I'm going to be fire and throw Jen a curveball because this is what we
I
do. And
love it.
she's like, yay. Well, I don't know why I didn't write this or put this in. And I mean, I think it's just normal for you. Automatic writing is such an earth. So Jen, like teaches all the writing things. So I'm going to be quiet.
Yeah, that's very true. I don't teach all the writing things, but I do teach that putting pen to paper is a really great way to connect to your intuition because it's physical. And so whether we're writing or drawing or sketching or coloring or whatever, like it doesn't matter what it is, there's something about being able to just kind of let things flow that helps you either become like your body sort of become a channel for those messages, or with automatic writing, you don't really think about what you're writing. You just start writing, maybe you set a timer for 10 minutes. And even if it's just gibberish or you are kind of like not running out of things to write or get like a little hiccup, then you can just say, I'm doing automatic. You can keep writing, I'm doing automatic writing until something else comes up or that kind of thing. But I love doing it to answer questions. Sometimes if you ask a question and then you do some writing, it may not be that like the whole answer comes through in a perfect monologue. It could be like there's little phrases here and there that catch your eye and you go, oh yeah, I need to pay attention to that. So yeah, thank you. That's a very good tangible way to be connecting to earth energy for intuition.
And even if like I'll find myself while I'll meditate and then I'm sorting through that and trying to hone that process, I'll find myself scribbling or, drawing a circle over and over or whatever that using a pen excuse me, using a pen to paper is often a way to, again, pull it down so it's tangible. Air and fire, these are out here kind of fluid that you got to grasp and try and hold on to. And earth is like, okay, keep it simple. Can we get it down here so we understand what it is? And the writing process
Mhm.
turns it into something you can do
I
something
agree.
with. So,
That's a good
okay,
point.
I don't, you're
Awesome.
amazing at that. So,
Oh, thank you. I just, I like tangibility. So I totally, yeah, it works for me. Well, thank you all for being here with us again today. We're excited to continue this conversation, and we'll be talking about the element of air in our next episode. So keep an eye out for that. In the meantime, keep telling us what's working for you, or send us your questions if you have any. We're happy to answer those, whether it's part of the podcast or just returning your message. But either way, pay attention to how the earth energy is coming through for you this week, and let us know how it goes.
And we're trying to get more Earth-like in our business, and we're developing a new structure of writing a blog for each podcast. So check out our website. We're starting to make that a process so you get more details. There'll be other things there if you want to go to modernmysticspod.com. We're so glad you're here, guys. Thanks.
And if you're liking the podcast, please feel free to rate us or leave a review. It helps other people feel comfortable joining us too. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.